You know, the story of the Titanic didn't really end when it slipped beneath the waves. Nope. For over 70 years, its biggest secrets were just sitting there, hidden on the ocean floor. Today, we're diving in to uncover the real story of its final, violent moments.
So, when investigators finally found the wreck, one thing was immediately glaringly obvious, and it kicked off a whole new investigation. See, the ship was in two pieces, but they were in dramatically different conditions, and that raised a huge question.
I mean, the contrast is just stunning. The bow, the front part of the ship, it's sitting there almost majestically on the ocean floor, eerily preserved. But the stern, it's a mangled, unrecognizable wreck, nearly half a mile away. How does that even happen? How can two parts of the exact same ship have such completely different fates?
To get to the bottom of this, we first have to tackle the oldest myth about the sinking, the one that, it turns out, never quite added up.
For decades, the official story, the one you've probably heard, was that the iceberg tore a massive 300-foot gash along the ship's side. We're talking the length of a football field. It seemed to make sense, but there was one major problem with that story. Well, think about it. A hole that big would have flooded the Titanic almost instantly. The ship would have gone down in a matter of minutes, not hours.
And yet, we know that's not what happened. The eyewitness accounts, they were crystal clear. The ship took about 2.5 hours to sink. That slow, agonizing descent just didn't square with the idea of a catastrophic 300-foot wound.
So, how do we solve this? Well, the answer wasn't in some old report. We have to go to the wreckage itself.
The real answer couldn't be found in theories. No, it was waiting, silently, on the ocean floor. And it wasn't until 1985, when the wreck was finally located, that investigators could see the real damage for themselves.
And when explorers finally got cameras on the hull, the truth was absolutely astonishing. There was no 300-foot gash. Instead, what they found was a series of small cracks and dents, totaling just 11 square feet. That's it.
And this was the key. This much smaller area of damage allowed water to pour in, yeah, but at a more controlled rate, about 370 gallons per second. And when you do the math, that flooding speed perfectly matches the eyewitness accounts. Mystery solved.
But you know how it is. Solving one mystery only made another one more urgent. If the damage from the iceberg was relatively small, what in the world caused the utter destruction of the stern?
Okay, so this is where some seriously cool tech comes into play. Using advanced sonar, scientists captured millions and millions of data points from the wreck site. They stitched them all together and created this breathtakingly detailed 3D model, which let them do something no one had ever done before: reconstruct the ship's final, fatal plunge.
And what that model revealed was, well, it was pure chaos. The stern didn't just sink, it went into a violent, spinning nosedive, hitting speeds of 80 kilometers per hour. That insane speed, combined with the immense water pressure, literally ripped it to pieces on the way down, causing the decks to collapse on impact like a stack of pancakes.
It all just came down to physics. The bow was hydrodynamic. It was shaped like a knife, designed to cut through water, so it glided almost gracefully to the seafloor. But the stern, with its jagged, wide-open end, it acted like a parachute. It caught the water, tumbled chaotically, and was just torn apart. That's why they look so radically different today.
All right, so this leaves us with one final, absolutely crucial question. When, and more importantly, where did the ship actually split in two?
For years, everyone just assumed the break happened entirely at the surface, right? I mean, eyewitnesses described the stern rising high out of the water before this loud cracking sound echoed across the ocean. The belief was the two halves separated right then and there.
But the debris field on the ocean floor, the crime scene, it tells a different story. See, if the ship had fully broken apart way up at the surface, the wreckage would be spread over a much wider area. And here's the key clue. 90% of the small items found, we're talking cups, plates, they all come from the stern, which suggests it was still holding together for a while.
So experts now believe the ship started to crack on the surface, just as witnesses described. But, and this is the fascinating part, the two halves remained partially attached as they sank, almost like a bent hinge. They only separated completely much closer to the ocean floor, which perfectly explains that more concentrated debris field.
So now that these incredible mysteries are pretty much solved, the Titanic faces one final, inescapable challenge: its own disappearance.
You might think that rust would be a super slow process in the freezing cold, low oxygen depths of the ocean, but scientists discovered something totally amazing happening on the wreck. These formations they called rusticles. And these aren't just normal rust. They are living, breathing colonies of bacteria.
Get this. Incredibly, these unique bacteria are actually producing their own oxygen as they consume the ship's iron. This is dramatically accelerating the decay. They're essentially eating away at the ship's structure at an absolutely astonishing rate.
And what all this means is, well, time is running out. Experts are predicting that within years, the decks will fully collapse and that iconic shape of the Titanic that we all recognize, it will be gone forever.
Which leaves us with one final, really haunting thought. As this historic monument is slowly consumed by nature, what other secrets, what questions we haven't even thought to ask yet will be lost with it forever?